This is the third lecture from chapter C, and it will cover minor scales. I'm going to give you yet another melody as an example. Okay, so here is the melody, O Come Emmanuel. You might think of this as a Christmas carol. Technically, it's an Advent carol, but it follows what seems to be the theme in this chapter, which is that Dr. T pulls out carols to show you. Here's how this goes. O come, Emmanuel, and rescue captive Israel. We are not in the key of C here, we're in the key of D. Notice that there's a B flat in the key signature. That means that when I got to measure 2, I sang a B flat. That would be a minor third from G to B flat. We could do the same sort of analysis on this melody that we've done before. It starts on scale degree 1, it ends on scale degree 1. The basic range is from D to A, but we go just one note outside that range. We go from A up to B flat and back to A. And then on the lower end, we go from D down to C and back to D. So it's essentially the range is from tonic to dominant, but we exceed that range by one step in either direction. Many of the downbeats are scale degree 3, and scale degree 1 and scale degree 5 are frequently used in important places, either on strong beats, relatively strong beats, or as the starting or ending notes. So we start with the tonic triad, 1, 3, 5. We repeat scale degree 5. Measure 2, the downbeat is not a note of the tonic triad, but beat 3 is. The next downbeat is scale degree 3, the mediant. Then we have in measure 4, the downbeat is dominant. We arpeggiate down to mediant. So measure 4 is one big tonic triad. And then measure 5 starts again, not on a note of the tonic triad, but beat 3, which is strong, is a tonic note, and the final note is a tonic note. The names of the minor scale degrees are the same as those of the major scale, with one exception. We still call scale degree 3 the mediant, even though it's now a minor third above tonic instead of a major third. Now here's a note that has a different name. We're not going to call the C natural here a leading tone because it's more than a half step away from tonic. So it doesn't have quite that strong leading motion. Instead, this note is called the subtonic. So the subtonic is the note a whole step below tonic, in the same way that the supertonic is a whole step above tonic. Here is the natural minor scale. We could just call this the minor scale also, but here's the scale written out going from tonic up to the high tonic. And we can see that there's a different pattern of whole steps and half steps from the major scale. The minor scale starts with a whole step and then a half step, a tone and then a semitone. And then we have 2 tones in a row. And then we have a semitone from dominant to submediant, and then 2 tones. The scale sounds like this. Now, let's think about this subtonic note. The subtonic note is a little bit weaker in terms of its motion to tonic because it's farther away, it's a whole step away. And it turns out that once we get into the music of the last few centuries, even when composers used the minor scale, they tended to prefer the leading tone, especially for use with harmonies. Let me sing O Come Emmanuel again for you. And this time, instead of singing a C natural, I'm going to sing a C sharp so that you can hear the difference. And I'll start here with the pickup to measure 4. And rescue captive Israel. That's with the leading tone. And rescue captive Israel. That's with the subtonic. You hear how the leading tone kind of more strongly leads us back up to tonic? And rescue captive Israel. It gives it a little bit more of a modern flavor. It sounds less like Gregorian chant. Sometimes we incorporate that leading tone as the 7th note of a minor scale. When we do that, We call it the harmonic minor scale. This textbook by Mr. Ralph Turek, The Elements of Music, says the harmonic minor scale is a natural minor scale with the 7th degree raised 1/2 step. So when we do that, we still have the semitone or minor second between 5 and 6, but now we have a semitone or a minor second between 7 and 8, or 7 and 1. And this is interesting, we have an augmented second from scale degree 6 to scale degree 7. Here's what the harmonic minor scale sounds like. That augmented second was felt to be a kind of an awkward interval melodically. And so sometimes if composers used the raised 7th scale degree, the leading tone, they would also raise the 6th scale degree so that they would not have that augmented second. When that happens, we have the melodic minor scale. The upper tetrachord has the C sharp because it's the leading tone to D, but it has the B natural because of wanting to correct that augmented second. And the result is that the upper tetrachord of the scale is identical to the upper tetrachord of the major scale. It goes 5, 6, 7, 1, just like a major scale does. Textbooks often make a point of saying that when you have a melodic minor scale, you should make the descending form identical to the natural minor form. Your textbook says this, and Mr. Turek's textbook says this. This is really just kind of a teaching thing. I'm not sure why people insist on this. I'm not going to insist on it. Basically, for my class, I want you to be able to write ascending scales, natural minor, harmonic minor, and melodic minor, and know the differences among those. But we're not going to worry about this so-called descending form of the melodic minor. I've put up on the board here 4 scales, all starting on D. And these are mostly the scales that we've been talking about. Here's the natural minor scale. And I've used this little bent line to show where the half steps are. So the half steps are between 2 and 3 and between 5 and 6. That's the natural minor scale. The harmonic minor scale, all the notes are the same as the natural minor, except this scale degree 7, which is made a half step higher so that we have a leading tone. C sharp is actually a note that we have in the key of D major, because major scales end with that half step. So when I name this note with a scale degree, I'll often put a sharp to one side of it, and this scale degree sharp 7 is meant to indicate that it's the leading tone. Notice that it won't always literally have a sharp on it. It's possible if the natural minor has a flat note as scale degree 7, then the raised scale degree 7, the leading tone, would have a natural. Or if the minor scale already has a sharp there and we need to make it a half step higher, it might have a double sharp. Those are less common. So when you see the sharp 7 scale degree, think of it more as being a raised scale degree 7, not literally a sharp note. Now here's the melodic minor scale. This scale is the same as the natural minor scale until we get to the 2nd tetrachord. And then, like the harmonic minor scale, it has a raised scale degree 7, so that we have a leading tone. It also has a raised scale degree 6. Instead of having the B flat, which is in the key signature of D minor, we have a B natural. And that means that the whole 2nd tetrachord here is the same as what we would have in the key of D major. Most of you know that the key of D major has 2 sharps in the key signature, F sharp and C sharp. So here's the end of the melodic minor scale, and it's basically like we've taken the end of D major and we've grafted it onto the beginning of D minor. And again, these scale degrees sharp 6 and sharp 7 don't necessarily mean that the note has a sharp on it. It simply means that they've been raised relative to the notes that are in the minor scale. One of these notes was raised by putting a natural on it, moving from B flat to B natural. The other one was raised by putting a sharp on it, going from a natural note to a sharp note. The fourth scale, just to make this complete, is a D major scale. And the D major scale is almost exactly like the melodic minor scale, except that now we have a semitone between scale degree 3 and scale degree 4. So I think it's very useful to think of minor scales, the 3 different kinds of minor scale, and the major scale on the same note. Think of these all together, because in the second tetrachord, the notes that you're changing to make the scale first a harmonic minor scale and then maybe a melodic minor scale, those notes are actually notes from the major scale. So it helps to think of them that way to help you get the right note. So the relationship between D minor and D major is a very important relationship. It's called the parallel relationship. D minor is the parallel minor of D major, and D major is the parallel major of D minor. I'm going to show you one more thing here. This is a part of a piece by Mr. Bach. You'll notice that some parts of the piece are bracketed and have little letters on them. All of these places show the upper tetrachord of the scale. In measure 81, the first note is a B natural, and that natural carries through. So this is also a B natural. We have C, B natural, A natural, G. And then here we have a C, and then a B flat, A flat, G. What Mr. Trawick shows you here is that, thinking in terms of the melodic minor scale, it's not really true that there is literally an ascending form and a descending form. It's not true that in music, the ascending form of the melodic minor scale is always used for going up, and the descending form is always used for going down. There are quite a few places where, even though we're going down, we're using the ascending form of the upper tetrachord. That happens in letter D also, and it happens in letter H. We could also probably find places in other pieces of music, maybe even elsewhere in this piece, where the descending form of the upper tetrachord would be used in ascent. Typically, when we talk about a piece of music like this, what we would say is that this piece is in the key of C minor. We would not say it's in C harmonic minor or it's in C melodic minor, because in fact, just like Bach does in this example, composers are going to go back and forth between the different forms of the minor scale. So listen to this example. In the next lecture, we'll be talking about major and minor key signatures. I will say some more about the parallel relationship between keys, and I'll also talk about relative keys, relative major and relative minor. Thank you.